I'd like to introduce my colleague, Professor Natalie Rothman, who's a specialist on the early modern period. Her work has focused on the Mediterranean and relations between Venice and the Ottoman East. And Natalie, I wanted to ask you to talk to us a little bit about the trading networks that connected the Eastern Mediterranean to the Ottoman Empire and beyond, and in particular to tell us a little bit about the way in which those networks functioned in an economic sense.
Mm-hmm. So when we talk about the Eastern Mediterranean, we're referring to a range of countries that today are thought of as completely separate and independent of one another, whether it's in Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, or in North Africa and the Aegean and Asia Minor on the other side, so Turkey, Greece, the Balkans. But in the period that we're talking about here, from the late 15th century onwards in particular, the Ottoman Empire really controls a large swath of that territory and extends further east all the way into what today are Iraq, the border with Iran, and in some cases all the way to the Indian Ocean. So we're talking about a political unit that allows for merchants to operate fairly smoothly across large swaths of land. What this means is that merchants can actually expect to bring merchandise of certain kinds to port cities and buy other wares that come from very, very long distances. So this is achieved in part thanks to the political stability that the Ottomans bring to this big chunk of overland territory, and in part because of changes in technology and changes in financial instruments. On the technology side, you have the emergence of seafaring technologies, certain kinds of merchant boats that are heavily armed, that are fairly nimble, and that can navigate the waters of the Mediterranean and the Indian Oceans in new ways that were unavailable previously, with much larger space for merchandise on board. On the financial side of things, you have, in part thanks to the Venetians, in part thanks to aspects of trade that were already in place in the Mamluk and Ottoman periods that I'll talk about in a moment, you have the ability to expect your financial transactions, your business transactions, your mercantile transactions to go through fairly smoothly, even with people that you don't know and that you will never meet. And that's a crucial aspect. You can send merchandise with your agents from Venice or even from places of production further north of the Alps, in what today we would call Germany, for example, going to Ottoman markets and purchasing merchandise that is brought over from the Indian Ocean or from Safavid Iran, the neighbor and rival of the Ottomans. But because of, for example, the availability of Armenian trading communities that move stuff across the Iranian Ottoman, the Safavid Ottoman border, you can have silk, which is a much coveted product that is not available in Europe yet, and purchase that in return for, say, cottons or metals or other wares that are brought from the north and are very much in demand in Ottoman land. How is this done? In part through the availability of agents and brokers, which is a system that was already in place in the Ottoman regions well before they are kind of integrated into this broader northern Alpine system, in part through the availability of credit and instruments that ensure that if you send a bill of exchange, you will get the money in local currency at the place where the bill of exchange is presented, even if none of the people involved in the transaction know one another personally. So this is a great boon to long distance trade, and combined with these with these technological developments and the political developments that the Ottomans bring into place, it allows commerce over long distance to expand on a really unprecedented scale in the late 15th and 16th centuries.